You have got a dead zone in your yard. You know the ones. That patch under the big oak or the maple where nothing grows except mud, pine needles, and your last shred of hope. You have tried hostas, you have tried mulch. You have stared at it from the kitchen window and thought, well, I guess that spot just does not do anything. You just have been planting the wrong things. Most gardeners treat shade like a problem to decorate around. What if you treated it like a food-growing system that requires almost no effort? Because the tree already built the infrastructure for you. No brutal afternoon sun baking your soil into concrete. No evaporation crisis every August. Deep, cool, consistently moist ground that certain plants spent thousands of years evolving to thrive in. Today at Green Acres, we are going into the shade and coming back with food. 10 plants that grow in low-light conditions most gardeners write off as unworkable, and produce real, edible, nutrient-dense harvests. Some of these have kept communities alive through hard winters. A few of them are probably already growing in your neighborhood right now, completely ignored. All of them belong under that useless tree. Let us start with the plant that has made grown adults drive 4 hours into the Appalachian Mountains in April, just to dig up a handful of bulbs. Ramps are wild leeks. Broad, smooth leaves, deep green, emerging from the bare forest floor in early spring before most trees have leafed out. They smell like garlic crossed with an onion that has been thinking very hard about something. The scent hits you before you even see the plant. Walk into a ramp patch in late March, and you will know you are in one before you look down. They are one of the most eagerly anticipated forage crops in North America, and they grow in exactly the kind of deep, deciduous shade most gardeners ignore entirely. What makes ramps remarkable is not just the flavor. It is the timing. They come up in March and April, weeks before any cultivated vegetable is ready. After a winter of eating whatever you manage to preserve, fresh ramps are a nutritional event. Indigenous communities in the eastern United States use them specifically for this, as a first-of-spring tonic after months of dried and stored food. The Cherokee, the Iroquois, and Appalachian communities across West Virginia and Tennessee harvested them each spring with the seriousness you give to something that matters to your health. They are high in vitamin C and A, rich in sulfur compounds with genuine antimicrobial properties, and tasting so aggressively good that fine dining restaurants have spent the last 15 years charging $22 for a small plate of them sauteed in butter with a little sea salt. Ramps need rich, moist, deciduous woodland soil. Under hardwoods is ideal, maples, beeches, tulip poplars, anywhere the leaf litter has had decades to break down into something dark and alive. Plant the bulbs in fall 2 to 3 inches deep, and then leave them completely alone for 3 years. That is the catch with ramps, and there is no shortcut around it. They are slow to establish. The bulbs multiply gradually underground, forming spreading colonies that take time to reach harvestable density. The reward for your patience is a patch that comes back every spring without being asked, spreads a little wider every year, and costs you nothing after the initial planting. Everything is edible: leaves, stems, and bulbs. The leaves are best before the plant flowers. Once flowers appear, the leaves toughen. Wild ramp populations across Appalachia are under serious pressure from overcollecting. People dig whole colonies for farmers' markets and restaurant supply. Sustainable harvesting means taking no more than 1 leaf per plant and leaving bulbs in the ground. Growing your own removes you from that equation entirely. It also means you have ramps when you want them, not just when you can find them. In the winter of 1848, gold miners flooding into California were dropping from scurvy. No fresh vegetables anywhere, no supply chains, no farmers' markets, nothing. Someone figured out that a small, succulent-looking plant growing in the cool, shaded understory of hillsides was not only edible, but loaded with vitamin C. They ate it by the handful. They did not die. It has been called miner's lettuce ever since. This is one of the fastest and most cold-tolerant edible plants you can grow. It germinates in near-freezing soil, thrives in shade and part shade, and produces its uniquely shaped round leaves from fall through spring in mild climates and from early spring in cold ones. The leaf shape is genuinely strange and worth describing. Each one is a wide, flat disc, sometimes 2 inches across, with a flower stem growing straight up through the center of it like the plant stuck a flagpole through a dinner plate. The flowers are tiny and white. The whole thing looks slightly improbable. The flavor is mild, succulent, and slightly sweet. Nothing like the bitter greens people expect from a forage plant. Closer to butter lettuce than to arugula. It has a faint mineral note, but nothing that requires cooking or dressing to manage. You can eat it straight out of the ground, rinse and toss it in a bowl, use it anywhere you would use baby spinach. Direct seed it under deciduous trees in September and again in late February. It self-seeds aggressively once established, which means after the first year you stop thinking about it and it just keeps appearing exactly where the conditions suit it. It handles freezing temperatures down to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit without significant damage and keeps producing long after warm season crops have given up. Nutritional profile is meaningfully stronger than most grocery store lettuce. Higher vitamin C, higher iron, higher beta-carotene. 3 times the vitamin C of iceberg lettuce, which is not a high bar but illustrates the gap. The miners knew something the produce section still has not caught up to. Fiddleheads. If you have ever paid $4 or $5 for a small bundle of tightly coiled fern shoots at a farmer's market and thought, "What even is this and why is it so expensive?" you are looking at the harvest from one of the most productive edible perennials you can grow in deep shade. The ostrich fern is a native North American fern that grows in the kind of wet, shaded ground most gardeners cannot use for anything. Riverbanks. The base of slopes where water collects after rain. The perpetually damp corner behind a garage or a fence where standing water lingers. Under a dense tree canopy where direct sun never reaches the ground. It handles full shade and actually prefers it in hot climates where other ferns scorch. Each mature plant sends up a dramatic crown of tall, arching fronds that reach 5 to 8 feet depending on soil moisture, and in early spring before those fronds unfurl. It produces a flush of tightly coiled new shoots emerging from the center of the crown. Those are the fiddleheads. They taste like asparagus crossed with green beans, firm-textured, slightly earthy, and completely unlike anything else in a standard vegetable garden. The harvest window is short, about a week to 10 days per plant, which is why they command farmers' market prices. The timing is specific. You want them when they are tightly coiled, bright green, with the papery brown scale covering still mostly intact. Once they start unfurling, the texture becomes fibrous and the flavor sharpens past pleasant. They need to be cooked. 15 minutes of blanching or 10 minutes of sautéing. Raw fiddleheads contain a compound called thiaminase that interferes with vitamin B1 absorption. And there are documented cases of illness from people who ate them raw or undercooked. Heat destroys thiaminase completely, so cooking is not optional, but it is also not complicated. One mature ostrich fern produces roughly a week's worth of fiddlehead harvests per spring. A cluster of 3 plants in a wet corner you are not using for anything is a meaningful, recurring spring harvest. They spread slowly by rhizome, require zero irrigation once established in adequately moist ground, and have been harvested by communities across northeastern North America for centuries. The Abenaki and Mi'kmaq peoples ate them regularly in spring. You plant them once. They outlive most things you will ever put in the ground. Here is a plant that solves 2 problems simultaneously. Problem 1, you have a deeply shaded spot that stays moist and nothing is growing there. Problem 2, you are paying 40 cents a sprig for anise or fennel at a grocery store that treats fresh herbs as a premium product. Sweet Cicely is a large, ferny-leafed perennial that looks almost identical to poison hemlock at first glance, which is the main reason it is not more widely grown, and which is a real shame because the 2 plants smell completely different when you crush a leaf. Sweet Cicely smells exactly like anise. Strong, sweet, immediately recognizable. Hemlock smells musty and unpleasant. Learn that difference once and you will never confuse them again. The entire plant is edible. Every single part of it. Leaves, seeds, and roots. The leaves are the easiest entry point, mild anise flavor. Excellent in salads, in herb butters, in fish dishes, anywhere you would use tarragon or chervil. The seeds are harvested green before they dry and harden, and at that stage they are almost candy-like, sweet and intensely anise-flavored, one of the most unusual edible seeds in temperate horticulture. Dry them and you have a spice. The roots are the most underused part. White carrot-shaped, firm, tasting of sweet anise, they can be eaten raw in thin slices or cooked like parsnips. Medieval Northern European cooks roasted them as a vegetable course. Here is the part most people do not know. Sweet Cicely contains annatol and other compounds that actively reduce bitterness in other foods. Medieval cooks figured this out through observation and started adding it to dishes made with sharp greens, acidic fruit preparations, and bitter vegetables. Modern chefs have rediscovered this. A few sweet Cicely leaves added to a bowl of bitter salad greens genuinely tones down the bite. It grows to 3 or 4 feet tall in moist, rich, shaded soil. Handles woodland conditions that would kill rosemary, thyme, or basil within a season. Self-seeds readily once established. Comes back year after year without any intervention. You will find yourself with more plants than you need within 3 years, and the problem becomes what to do with the divisions. You have stepped on this plant. You have pulled it out of your garden beds without a second thought. You are throwing away food that people have been eating for thousands of years. Wood sorrel grows in dense shade, particularly in the leaf litter under mature deciduous trees, and produces small leaves in groups of 3 that look almost exactly like clover but fold downward in bright light and at night, which clover does not do. The flavor is sharp, bright, and distinctly lemony, caused by oxalic acid, the same compound responsible for the tartness in spinach and chard. Nothing else in the shade garden tastes like it. It is refreshing in a way that most greens are not. The history of this plant as food is long and specific. Medieval European cooks made a sauce called green sauce or sorrel sauce from wood sorrel blended with vinegar, herbs, and sometimes bread crumbs, and served it with roasted meats and fish. It appears in French culinary records from the 14th century. Irish communities used it traditionally as a spring tonic, called seamrog in Irish Gaelic, eaten after winter to clean out the system, which is either folk medicine or an intuitive understanding of the fact that it is very high in vitamin C after months of eating dried and preserved food. It is still sold fresh in specialty markets and high-end grocery stores in France, where it goes by Ocel sauvage. Raw in a salad, the flavor is genuinely one of the more interesting things you can add to a bowl of greens. It is acidic and bright without being aggressive. Use it as you would use a squeeze of lemon, as a counterpoint to fatty or mild things. The caution is real and worth stating directly. Oxalic acid in large quantities causes problems for people prone to kidney stones because it binds to calcium and forms oxalate crystals. This is the same issue as eating large amounts of spinach or rhubarb. Used as a salad green and seasoning herb rather than a bulk vegetable, wood sorrel presents no meaningful risk for most people. Eaten by the bowlful every day by someone already dealing with kidney stones, that is a different conversation. You are already growing it for free under your trees. The only question is whether you treat it as a weed or a harvest. The name alone tells you everything about how gardeners feel about this plant. Ground elders. It is one of the most aggressively spreading perennials in temperate horticulture, introduced to Britain by the Romans as a food plant roughly 2,000 years ago, and subsequently despised by every gardener who ever tried to remove it for the next 2,000 years. It does not remove. It comes back. It spreads under fences into the neighbor's yard. It finds ways under root barriers. It simply does not care what you want. Here is the refrain for a shade gardener with a dead zone. You have a contained area under heavy tree canopy where nothing grows. Ground elder will grow there vigorously all season in mild climates, completely without irrigation or amendment or any intervention whatsoever. The leaves taste like flat-leaf parsley crossed with angelica, herby, slightly medicinal in a pleasantly assertive way. Good in soups, in green sauces, wilted with butter and garlic, or used raw in small quantities in salads as you would use a stronger herb. The young spring growth is the best eating. Mild, fresh, with less of the medicinal edge the mature leaves develop. It comes up earlier than almost anything else in the garden, which means it fills a gap in the seasonal calendar that is otherwise hard to fill. Romans used it specifically to treat gout, earning it its other common name, goutweed. Whether the therapeutic claims hold up under scrutiny is debatable. What is not debatable is that this plant fed people across cold, shaded, difficult ground throughout northern Europe for 2,000 years, before cheap food made foraging unnecessary. The strategic question with ground elder is containment, not cultivation. Plant it somewhere physically bounded, a bed edged by hardscape, a contained corner under heavy shade where tree roots prevent other plants from competing. Give it that territory with clear edges and harvest from it freely. That is the deal you make with this plant. It keeps that deal better than almost anything else you can grow in difficult shade. Most gardeners who know this plant know it as a ground cover. Low, heart-shaped leaves, dense and attractive, spreading gradually across shaded ground in a way that crowds out weeds without any help from you. It is sold in native plant nurseries almost exclusively for this purpose. What most gardeners buying it for their shaded beds do not know is that the rhizomes running just below the soil surface taste unmistakably, and genuinely surprisingly, of ginger. Not identical to the commercial ginger root in your grocery store. American wild ginger has a warmer, more complex flavor, with floral and earthy notes that tropical ginger does not have. The two plants are not related at all. Commercial ginger is a tropical monocot from Southeast Asia. Wild ginger is a North American woodland perennial that happens to have evolved similar aromatic compounds. Indigenous communities across the eastern United States and Canada dried and powdered the rhizomes and used them exactly as you would use ginger root, as a cooking spice, a tea herb, and a digestive aid. The Meskwaki used it to flavor foods. The Potawatomi used it medicinally for headaches and earaches. European settlers who arrived in the Northeast adopted it quickly once they discovered it, recognizing immediately what it was useful for. The plant itself grows 6 to 8 inches tall in rich, moist, deciduous shade. Deep shade under hardwoods is ideal. It spreads by rhizome at a moderate pace, filling in ground slowly but reliably, and once established it suppresses weed competition effectively enough that you stop weeding the area. Harvest by pulling individual rhizomes from the edge of an established colony, which leaves the interior intact and spreading. One note that deserves to be stated plainly. Wild ginger contains aristolochic acid, a compound that in highly concentrated, isolated extract form has been linked to kidney damage in studies, particularly in traditional medicine preparations from Taiwan, where large quantities were used medicinally over extended periods. Occasional culinary use in small quantities, the way it has been used as a spice for centuries, occupies a different risk category entirely. People with existing kidney conditions should consult before using it regularly. Everyone else can treat it as the cooking spice it has been for hundreds of years. You probably already have these. Almost every gardener in North America with a shaded yard has planted hostas at some point. They are the default answer to the shade problem. Ubiquitous, reliable, ornamental, and undemanding. Almost nobody who has ever planted them knows they are edible. In Japan, where the original hosta species come from before Western horticulturists spent a century hybridizing them into hundreds of ornamental varieties, the young spring shoots are eaten as a vegetable called urui. This is not obscure historical food. It is a current, living culinary tradition. Urui appears in Japanese izakayas, in home cooking, in spring vegetable preparations across the Tohoku and Niigata regions. It gets served blanched and dressed simply with a little dashi and soy, or in miso soup or tempura fried. The flavor is described consistently as mild, slightly glutinous and clean, something between asparagus and leek, without bitterness or strong herbal character. The harvest window is specific and short. You want the shoots when they first emerge in spring, tightly furrowed, just pushing through the soil between 2 and 6 inches tall. At that stage, the texture is tender and the flavor is at its mildest. Once the leaves start unfurling, the texture becomes too stringy and the taste sharpens. You have roughly 1 to 2 weeks per clump, depending on your climate and the spring temperature that year. Not all hosta varieties are equally good eating. Japanese culinary tradition focused on the original species types, particularly Hosta montana and Hosta siboldiana, before decades of ornamental hybridization produced the hundreds of modern cultivars with variegated leaves and unusual colors. Most of those hybrids also produce edible shoots at the right stage, but flavor and texture vary by cultivar. If you have an older, plain green hosta that has been in your shade bed for 20 years, the shoots are worth trying before you invest in specialty varieties. Cook them briefly. Blanch for 2 to 3 minutes or sauté in butter. They do not need much. If you have been walking past hostas every spring without thinking about them as food, you have been ignoring a free harvest that has been showing up reliably for years. This one is underused to a degree that is genuinely difficult to explain. Turkish rocket is a large, vigorous perennial in the mustard family. Zone 3 hardy, meaning it handles winters down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit without complaint. Tolerates poor soil, tolerates clay, tolerates part shade to nearly full shade without losing production. Drought tolerant once the root system establishes in the first year. No significant pest issues in North American climates. It lives for decades from a single planting and produces edible food from spring through early fall. Start with the leaves. Young spring leaves taste like a mild broccoli arugula hybrid, peppery and green, with less bitterness than either. Use them in salads, wilted in a pan, or blended into pestos where the mild mustardy note adds complexity without taking over. As the season progresses, the leaves get more assertive and are better cooked than raw, but they remain perfectly edible. The real prize is the flower buds. Before Turkish rocket opens into its yellow flowers in late spring, it produces tight clusters of small buds that taste almost exactly like broccoli florets. The resemblance is close enough that people who try them for the first time genuinely cannot believe it. A mature plant in peak production yields meaningful bud harvests every few days for 3 to 4 weeks. 3 or 4 plants in a part-shaded bed give you a recurring broccoli substitute through the season without the irrigation, pest management, and soil fertility demands that growing actual broccoli requires. Turkish rocket was widely cultivated across Europe and Western Asia as a kitchen garden staple and famine food from the 16th through the 19th century. It appears in historical records as a common vegetable in regions where food security was uncertain, exactly because it is reliable, hardy, and requires almost nothing from the gardener. It disappeared from mainstream horticulture not because anything was wrong with it, but because 20th century agricultural consolidation made obscure traditional crops economically invisible. Commercial seed companies do not stock things with no established market. That is the whole story. You can find seeds from specialty perennial vegetable suppliers and a handful of small seed companies that focus on unusual edibles. Plant it once and stop thinking about it. It will handle the rest. The plant that fights back. Also the one with the strongest nutritional argument for including it in any serious food garden, shaded or otherwise. Let us start with the nutrition because it is genuinely remarkable. Stinging nettle contains more protein per gram than most leafy vegetables, around 6 grams per 100 grams of cooked greens, which is meaningful by vegetable standards. It is high in iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and vitamins A, C, and K. The calcium content is higher than kale. The iron content rivals spinach. For a plant that grows wild in disturbed, shaded ground along fence lines and tree edges and does not require any cultivation input, that nutritional density is extraordinary. People have known this for a very long time. The Romans carried nettle seeds with them as they expanded across Europe, specifically because they knew they would need it in the cold, damp northern climates they were invading. They brought it to Britain, where it naturalized so successfully that it is now considered native. Medieval European peasants ate nettle soup in early spring when no other fresh food was available, and not reluctantly. It was genuinely sustaining. Nettle is still eaten widely across Italy, Greece, Turkey, Scandinavia, and the British Isles. Ribollita in Tuscany traditionally includes it. Norwegian cuisine uses it in soups. Turkish cuisine stuffs it into borek. This is not a forgotten food. It is an active food tradition in much of the world. It just somehow missed North America. It grows in moist, partly shaded ground near tree edges, along fence lines in the damp zones at the base of slopes. It spreads by rhizome and self-seeds into corners you were not paying attention to. Once established in the right spot, it becomes permanent and self-renewing. The sting is real and it is unpleasant. Hollow silicon needles on the leaves and stems inject a mixture of formic acid, histamine, and acetylcholine on contact. It raises welts. It itches. Wear gloves every single time you harvest. Thick rubber gloves, not thin ones. Do not convince yourself you are experienced enough to skip this. Heat destroys the sting completely. 90 seconds of blanching, 2 minutes of sautéing, and the plant is as harmless as any other cooked green. Harvest the young spring growth, the top 6 to 8 inches of new shoots before the plant flowers. After flowering, the leaves develop cystoliths, calcium carbonate crystals that make them gritty and unpleasant even when cooked. Spring harvest is what you want. It makes exceptional soup, outstanding pasta filling with ricotta, and a dark, earthy, sautéed green that sits next to braised meat better than almost anything you can grow in a vegetable garden. The plant bites back. It also feeds you if you pay attention to it. That dead zone under your tree is 10 food plants waiting to be planted. None of them need the sun, the irrigation, or the soil coddling that conventional gardening demands. The shade already built the growing system. You just had to stop treating it like a problem. Welcome to Green Acres. We will see you in the next one.